Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Reading from Srila Prabhupada Leela Uniting Two Worlds, and it's entitled The Final Lesson. Srila Prabhupada had heard of the program of his disciple Lokanath Swami, who was taking a small group of men on a bullock cart and preaching in villages throughout India. Lokanath had Lokanath had told Srila Prabhupada how in the course of their travels they had recently visited tirthas such as Bhadrakashram and Bimkapura. Srila Prabhupada was enlivened to hear this, and then he evolved a transcendental desire to go himself on a cart pulled by bullocks to circumambulate the area of Vrindavan. Tamal Krishna and Bhavananda, who were serving Prabhupada with increased intimacy, felt themselves unable to support Srila Prabhupada in his desire, since they thought his fragile body could not survive such rough treatment on the roads. But Srila Prabhupada reasoned that dying on Parakram is glorious, and he asked them to take him. A controversy developed among the devotees as some said Prabhupada's will to go on parikram should be immediately honored as an order from the spiritual master. He wanted it and he should not be denied. The doctor, however, assured them that Srila Prabhupada's body would not survive the jostling of the cart. The many devotees who crowded around Srila Prabhupada's bed held different opinions, and Prabhupada could see this. Following his request, however, Lokanath went out and hired a cart with bullocks and prepared it for the ride. Lokanath and Hamsadutta suggested that the parikrama could go to the city of Vrindavan or visit the 7 main temples of the Goswamis. But then they said that since the next day was Govardhan Puja, Prabhupada could go to Govardhan Hill. Tamal Krishna, Bhavananda, and Bhakti Charu, however, protested adamantly against the parikram. And Bhakti Charu, however, protested. One day experiment, Prabhupada said. It is for one day. Rest assured, I will not die in one day. He liked the idea of going to Govardhan, and he said, we shall make our cooking there, he said. Lokanath Swami, he reassured them, was experienced. Make very good picnic, he said. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shooting from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 1, entitled The History of the Life of Ajamil, text number 10. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Kvachin Nivartate Bhadrat. Kvachin Nivartate Bhadrat. Kvachich Charity Tat Puna. Kvachich Charity Tat Puna. Prayashchitam Ato Partam. Prayashchitam Ato Partam. Manye Kunjara Sochavat. Manye Kunjara Sochavat. Kachin Nivartate Bhadrat. Kachit Charity Tat Puna. Prayashchitam Ato Partam. Manye Kunjara Sochavat. Kvachin Nivartate Bhadrat. Kvachit Charity Tat Puna. Prayashchitam Ato Partam. Manye Kunjara Sochavat. Kvachin Nivartate Bhadrat. Kvachit Charity Tat Puna. Prayashchitam Ato Partam. Manye Kunjara Sochavat.
Kvachin Nivartate Bhadrat. Kvachin Nivartate Bhadrat. Kvachit Charity Tat Puna. Prayashchitam Ato Partam. Manye Kunjara Sochavat. Kvachin Nivartate Bhadrat. Kvachin Nivartate Bhadrat. Kvachit Charity Tat Puna. Prayashchitam Ato Partam. Manye Kunjara Sochavat.
Vachinnivartate bhadrat,
Vachinnivartate bhadrat,
vachicharati tatpuna,
Vachicharati tatpuna,
Prayashchitamadopatham,
Prayashchitamadopatham,
Manye kunjara sochavat,
Manye kunjara shochavat.
Vachinnivartate bhadrat,
Vachinnivartate bhadrat,
vachicharati tatpuna,
Vachicharati tatpuna,
prayashchitamadopatham,
Prayashchitamadopatham,
manye kunjara sochavat.
Manye kunjara sochavat,
Vachinnivartate bhadrat,
Vachinnivartate bhadrat,
vachicharati tatpuna,
Vachicharati tatpuna,
prayashchitamadopatham,
Prayashchitamadopatham,
manye kunjara shochavat,
Manye kunjara shochavat.
Kvachit,
Vachit,
sometimes.
sometimes.
Nivartate,
Nivartate,
ceases.
ceases.
Abhadrat,
Abhadrat,
from sinful activity.
from simple activity.
Kvachit, sometimes.
Sometimes.
Charity,
Charity
commits.
commits.
Tat, that, sinful activity.
Simple activity.
Puna,
Puna,
again.
again.
Prayachittam,
Prayashchittam,
the process of atonement.
the process of atonement.
Ato, therefore. Apartam,
Apartam,
useless.
useless.
Manye,
Manye,
I consider.
I consider.
Kunjara Shochavat,
Kunjara shochavat,
exactly like the bathing of an elephant.
exactly like the bathing of an animal.
Translation. Sometimes one who is very alert so as not to commit sinful acts is victimized by sinful life again. I therefore consider this process of repeated sinning and atoning to be useless. It is like the bathing of an elephant, for an elephant cleanses itself by taking a full bath and then throws dust over its head and body as soon as it returns to the land. Purport. When Parikshit Maharaj inquired how a human being could free himself from sinful activities so as not to be forced to go to hellish planetary systems after death, Shukadeva Goswami answered that the process of counteracting sinful life is atonement. In this way, Shukadeva Goswami tested the intelligence of Parikshit Maharaj Parikshit, who passed the examination by refusing to accept this process as genuine. Now Parikshit Maharaj is expecting another answer from his spiritual master, Shukadeva Goswami. Om Nadyanatavandasya Gananjanachanakaya Chakshinaminitanjana Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Bakam Karuti Vacharam Pangam Lankai Tikaram Yakipadaram Bande Shri Gurantinatayam Antikalpachubhishcha Kripasindubi Vicha Patita Lampavani Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasa Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So begging the blessings of the Vaishnavas, if I'll be able to speak something that will be of relevance and some inspiration. So thank you for being present. In the previous canto, there was a description of the structure of the universe, and we heard about how the inhabitants of Jambudweep, how they were strictly followed the Vedic rituals and worship of the demigods as direct servants of the Lord. And this way they purified their consciousness with a lifestyle of worship, accepting the demigods as the servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We heard how, out of fear the wind blows, out of fear of the Lord, the fire burns, and so on. So this is because of accepting the supremacy of the Lord and his order as all in all. They wouldn't dare disobey. And we even see how, like, demons, they've also followed the Vedic rituals, like Hiranyakashipu. He performed so many austerities for so long and attracted the attention of Lord Brahma. His austerities were so great that he was the weight of the whole. He was have an effect on the whole universe, and the demigods were complaining. So he was following also, but it's of course, for a demoniac purpose. But still, Lord Brahma fulfilled his boon. Gave him the benediction that he wanted. And similarly with Lord Shiva, he gave the benediction to Vrikashura, that he could touch anyone's head and that would be turned to ashes or just crack. So, but Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, being devotees of the Lord, and given benedictions, we also heard how the power of the demigods comes from Krishna. So he sanctions he sanctions these benedictions. So it was him that granted Hiranyakashipu's desire. He was he who fulfilled it, just as any demigod. They have so many worshippers and they for so many things, but they reciprocate and by fulfilling their desires, but their ability to do that is only come from Krishna. They're empowered by Krishna to do so. And then later on in the 5th canto, it's described how those who refuse to follow the Vedas, what's prescribed there, and how they suffer in different kinds of hells due to their impious acts. So we see how in this way the Earth planet is the only place where one in the whole universe where one isn't is given the freedom to not strictly follow. Everywhere else in the universe, one is just receiving the results of one's karmic reactions. So now we're hearing how, out of his compassion, Maharaj Parikshit is asking, how can such people avoid going to the hellish planets after death? And Shukadev Goswami is saying, well, atonement is there, one can counteract by performing some kind of atonement. But Maharaj Parikshit knows this to be just an artificial attempt. And in Nectar of Instruction, this verse actually is Prabhupada speaks on how atonement isn't a way that it doesn't give one can't counteract one's sinful pious or impious actions by some atonement. It has to be by following the order of the spiritual master and previous acharyas, and goes on to say how the Nectar of Instruction, by following these instructions there, one can be successful in one's human form of life. So, there he also begins by saying that it depends on one's attitude. The advancement of Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower, and how necessary it is to control the mind and senses in this regard. So atonement is given to those that, like Maharaj Pritchard was being tested here. So someone who didn't want to surrender to the Lord would see this an excuse to try and counteract one's sinful reactions, and he'll be an illusion that he thinks he's getting somewhere by it. But Maharaj Pritchard, being a fully purified and thoroughly honest soul, could see past this and inquired that he knew that it wasn't enough. It doesn't promote the consciousness of Krishna. So you see, another meaning of sin is forgetfulness of Krishna, because this is the root cause of our stay in this material world, that we forget Krishna and act according to the demands, urges, desires of the mind and senses. But to not remember Krishna is putting ourselves in a very precarious situation, as we see. We're so tiny. We're subordinate to our surroundings. For example, to speak of Krishna, we're dependent on the air we breathe. You know, if we stop breathing for a few minutes, we're gone. So just as much as we depend on the air we breathe, this gives an indication of how much we should depend on Krishna, as if we depend on him for our next breath. But due to gross consciousness, we're unaware of these, not so aware of this. And so by following the teachings of the previous acharyas, we can come to the mode of goodness, so that we can have a more purified, subtle consciousness, where we can be more vigilant and alert to the mind's direction, and be able to curb or stop it in its tracks. This is how, by contemplation of the senses, lust develops. From lust and anger arises, attachment, and then lust arises. From lust, anger develops, and from anger, bewilderment of memory. And when the memory is lost, and when memory goes, the intelligence is lost, and one becomes immersed again in the pure atmosphere. So it all starts with the mind. So the difference is like between gross and subtle consciousness is like walking into a room. If you walk into a room that's dirty and it's untidy and so on, it has a certain effect on you, on the consciousness. So similarly, when you walk into a clean room that's very kind of sparkling and tidy and so on, like that, and bright, so it has a different effect when you walk into that room. So for someone in purified consciousness, they won't be able to find it very difficult in an unkept situation. So similarly, with our state of consciousness in when it's not purified, we won't be allowed entry into the spiritual world, which is the epitome of purity and beyond the material realm, and it's just pure transcendence, which we, in our present state, don't have much of an idea of. But by practicing the process of Krishna consciousness, that's there to be that success, have that purified consciousness, so that we become eligible to re-enter that spiritual realm. So for this to be necessary, then we need to plug into the source, which is simply remembrance of Krishna. And we've been given the process of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And in this way, prime time is japa time, when we can really plug in, just to that source, and then the opportunity is there to become empowered and be successful. So just as we heard before, that Krishna is the ultimate beneficiary. He's the ultimate permitter and fulfills all desires. So if he can fulfill the desires of sinful people, then what to speak of the souls who are trying to surrender to him? So just as with the demigods, Krishna, he never lets his devotees' promises go in vain. So similarly with Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada said that we just chant 16 rounds, follow the 4 regulative principles, and then we'll go back home to Godhead. So with that promise, Krishna feels obliged to fulfill that. And so in this way, we give him the highest thing, but to be able to remain on the path, we need to, it's something so rare, ordinarily it's so rare, but by the mercy of devotees, it is possible, by getting their blessings from the Mahajans, from devotees in our association. Because they have Krishna, they can give us everything. It's a case of all or nothing. If by taking the direction of the Vaishnavas, then eventually we'll have Krishna. And Krishna gives all opportunity for us to be given direction and to accept direction and be able to put it into practice, all according to our desire and purity of heart. So whereas if we reject it, then we're in danger of going back to nothing, of leaving this world with nothing and being born into this world again with nothing. But with some practice of devotional service, then we have whatever advancement we've made intact. So just as saying how, that by the consciousness of, by the consciousness, one has a particular realm of existence. So like the effect of a consciousness in the mode of passion or ignorance is the untidy, unkept place, purity is the cleanliness. So similarly, when, like for example, if we go into Glasgow, it's like a den of sinful activity. So therefore, it's not a place that one can feel very peaceful. But when people visit the temple, because there's so much selfless service taking place, service out of devotion and performing so much hard work, then it creates a certain atmosphere that people can experience just by walking in on it. And especially the temple room, a place where it's the hub of all the most potent activities of devotional service taking place. So when people walk in, they naturally experience it. And so anybody coming in and taking on that mood, Krishna reciprocates. But it doesn't last unless we actually accept that mood of selfless service. It's just like we see some volunteers, they come and some really pick up on it and are having a great time. There's no problem. They're able to tolerate different little things, and they go away a lot happier than when they came. But there's others who come and they try and enjoy the atmosphere, and it's you see, it's a playground to try and fulfill their desires, their own desires to do certain things, but they don't really catch on and go on to the next place. And they've performed some service, which is by just being here, taking prasadam, padasevanam, just every step they take is given, they're making about some agyata security. But still they're appreciating Krishna from a distance in that way. Whereas someone who's actively involved, because devotional service is a practical activity. So by that practical activity, by that practical activity, slowly but surely, we're endearing ourselves to Krishna. So like when a devotee says, oh, they've been a devotee for so many years, then it should have some evidence of that behind it, some active service. It shouldn't be just a statement. It's because by such active service, it's our means of having a loving exchange with Krishna, which isn't a cheap thing. And they come to the point of depending on that service for that reciprocation. And by that, we become a reliable servant and given the facility to enter a confidential relationship with Krishna where Krishna depends on us and he becomes, we become the master in one sense. This is we experienced by deity worship, where Krishna is depending on us to feed him, to dress him, bathe and dress him, to sing before him, to perform kirtan. So in this way, we enter more intimate relationship with the Lord. But then we shouldn't forget that at any time that He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just out of His mercy, appearing before us to facilitate our endeavor to treat Him as a person and allow our dormant love for Him to manifest in this way. So we're not meant to just see Krishna within the deity, but Krishna says how the humble soul, he sees the Lord in every living being. So in this way, we can see Krishna everywhere, but also if the Krishna is within that living being, then to offer the due respect and attention to that living being in any way we can. Because Prabhupada said we show our love for him by how we cooperate. So that this means cooperation means doing things that we would not ordinarily do to maintain the relationship, and doing things that we would not ordinarily do to maintain the relationship or to allow that relationship to grow. And in the beginning, this can be very kind of, a no-go area. But as one values service to Krishna and how comes to know how Krishna is our best friend, the controller of everything, and the ultimate beneficiary, the owner of everything, and that how not a blade of grass moves without his sanction, then and the more purified we become in our consciousness, then the more we become agreeable to do the needful in this regard. So we see how devotees are peaceful, they're friendly, they're merciful, compassionate, and so on. So this is a mark of a Vaishnava. It's the age of Vaishnava Seva. So to serve in so many places says how to serve these devotees is the age of Vaishnava Seva. We make most of our advancement by serving devotees. So these external characteristics that are visible, those devotees may not have pure love of Godhead, but still it's a characteristic that's there. But we also have people who chant Hare Krishna, but they're professional is the means of livelihood. So to hear from them would be, because their hearts aren't pure, they have motivations just of sense gratification, then to hear from them isn't recommended. Lord Chaitanya says we should avoid them like we would avoid going into a cage with a tiger. So, yeah, there's so many devotees that's significant in our lives, so many Shiksha gurus, and that encourage us and to keep us in line with our with our own spiritual masters' instructions. So, in the fourth chapter, 434, does anyone know it? Hari Prashnena. And the English?
One should learn the truth about what you know from a great spiritual master, inquiring, humbling, rendering service, and learning, such as soul can impart knowledge to his they've seen fit.
That's it. So it says how they can impart knowledge because they have seen the truth, and so, which means they may choose not to as well. So that's so important that we please devotees that they may be pleased to share what they have, and everyone's got something to offer. Because it's said how, one can share knowledge, but only to one who asks. If we attempt to instruct to someone who's not in our jurisdiction, or try and share something that's that we feel they should know, it may be counteractive, and in this way we're not cooperating as Prabhupada's desired, because it may serve as a stumbling block for that person, and create some difficulty that in their progress. So if we really want some knowledge, then we have to please the devotees so that they be pleased to give us that knowledge. Because a lot of the time we don't know that we're doing something wrong, or not doing our best. So it's always good from time to time to ask a devotee, well, how am I doing? Or they can be merciful and come forward because they know that the relationship is there, where you'll accept or at least hear what they have to say and consider it. So that's the kind of relationship we'd like to have, where devotees are happy to be able to share something that they can see is getting in our way. And in this way, both parties become dear to Krishna. Because in this way, then the truth can be revealed. Krishna can manifest in that dialogue, and the truth will be revealed. And so Krishna says, by the Vedas I am to be known, that he's in the hearts of all, and can act through any of us to be able to impart to the truth to a greater or lesser degree. So thank you very much. I'll stop there. Is any questions or comments?
You see when you're saying that we should try and get like advice from devotees, like how we're doing, because how do relationship with someone will, feel comfortable to give you criticism?
The onus is on us to find someone, first of all, and also depends on our ability to accept knowledge from wherever it comes. Sometimes it can come in a way that's not palatable to our, kind of comes in a way that's sensitive to our mind and senses. But and so we may not accept it on the spot, but we can go away with a honest heart. We can go in, think about what's being said, and then if there's any doubts, then we can maybe go to someone else who we do have a confidential relationship with. To, let's say, someone so and so said this. What do you think? Well, it has to be someone who's senior. It's not like someone who's your pal is just going to say something you want to hear, like that. It has to be someone who's discriminating and a friend that's or senior that's have your ultimate interest at heart. Sometimes we need to just hear something that will pacify us. It's disturbed us so much that just something to pacify us is enough. But we have to somehow come to the point where we can hear the truth as it is. Ideally, one will share that share, as one reveals one's mind in confidence. Ideally, one will be given what we need to hear in a way that's we can take it. The medicine may be bitter, but they have the ability to sugarcoat it in such a way that we'll accept it. But yes, to find that person who we can reveal our mind in confidence and be able to, that we can be confident that they'll give the direction in such a way that we know we can accept it fully. And that's not everybody doesn't fit that category. So, we have to find that person ourselves. And we can search by testing by, with some smaller issues, but it may not be so confidential, and see what reaction we get there and the feedback we get. And if we find that it's something that's we're enthused by, that inspires us, then we can trust the person for something with more confidential in the future as it comes up. Does that answer your question?
Can we follow class? Just if you could elaborate, how would you define someone being a senior?
Like if one has a particular difficulty, then you see someone who excels in that, then they're senior in that regard. That you can go to, that they're expert in that regard. So there's someone we can approach on that. That they may have just walked in the door, or they may be very senior. Because we may be good at all of us. Maybe we have our fortes and our weaknesses, so we can address someone who's a forte in that regard that we're weak in, and but they may be senior, but if they're weak in a particular area, then maybe they shouldn't be approached. or they may be sick, they may be approached by how they're trying to overcome it themselves and what direction they've heard to be able to do so. Does that answer your question at all? Because there's different types of seniority, isn't there? Age, advancement, position. Is there any? Do you know any other ones? Any other? Oh, knowledge. Advance in knowledge, position, age, and number of years. Yeah, what age? Yeah. So, yeah. I think it's any other.
I was just going to comment that Rupa Swami defines the best person to go to is the one whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity. So that's the problem. The problem factor is that this person usually clicks and usually results in feedback. And that's what we're looking for, results. Orientated feedback, so that, and the person feels like he's being helped, he's not just being criticized. And although something very pointed out in the person, he's not made to feel uncomfortable or humiliated by that, but he feels empowered. Because the way Krishna tells Arjuna, he says, you're better than this, how these impurities come upon you. He doesn't make Arjuna feel less, he makes Arjuna feel like he's capable of so much more. So that's going to be very helpful if someone's looking for someone they can go to reveal their mind to. If they can go away feeling that their idea of themselves is not as good as how this other person sees them, then they can be encouraged at the same time as being shown that something is not, that the way they're applying Krishna consciousness isn't as effective as it could be. They can be applying their energies in a way which would be more efficient.
So in general, that's not a neophyte devotee or someone who's materialistic. Because the devotees, more senior devotees, generally have more experience. If they've been very active in their devotional service, their life in devotional service, they have more experience, and they've gone through hurdles and the hoops, and they feel that they want to share to save others going through the same thing. But if we're in a consciousness where we can't accept, then they'll just put it on the back burner for now, and maybe another opportunity will come later. But the more we come forward to address our difficulties, our weaknesses, then we have a relationship with someone who's willing to see them and point them out because circumstances demand, then ourselves very fortunate. So I'll stop. Is there any other questions? I'll stop there. Thank you very much. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. ISKCON Guruvrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shishiko Nitai Mai Prashashi ki jai. Samavekta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi. Hari Bol.